We've got Brackens, we've got Blackwoods, we've got Bastards, and battles cut short for reasons you may or may not agree with in this week's episode of House of the Dragon Season 2. This is episode 3, guys, and we're going to dive right into the episode in this spoiler breakdown review of sorts. Call it what you will. But yeah, hit that like, comment, and subscribe, and let's just dive right in with no further ado. All right, guys, so here we go. This episode is called The Burning Mill, referring to the literal burning mill we see in the aftermath of the Battle of the Brackens versus Blackwoods. Now, you could see the burning mill as some sort of symbolism for the blood and violence cycle that continues in this show and throughout the history of Westeros. It's just a fact, man. Everybody's trying to climb the ladder and chaos ensues, creating just an infinite cycle of fire and blood, literally. One thing I noticed about the intro is they actually updated it this week. We get to see the death of young Jaehaerys depicted, as well as the rat catchers being hung. So it's nice to know that every couple episodes we'll probably get an update on the intro and we can see the recent events played out in this beautiful graphic presentation. Nice detail. And I think the intro is much better than last season's. Comment down below if you like the old one better, or even if you liked the original Game of Thrones intro better. Which one's the best? We have 3 different intros now to choose from. The episode opens right in the middle of a field with House Bracken being confronted by House Blackwood. This guy makes a erectile dysfunction joke.
Can you even get that thing up?
Well enough for killing Blackwoods.
I guess killing Blackwoods gets our man hard here. Strange, but we'll take it. And here come the Blackwoods. They're fighting over these boundary stones.
Put the boundary stones back.
You didn't move them.
How did they move themselves then?
No one seems to take ownership of who moved them. It's interesting to see that these are all pretty young kids in charge of this conflict here, or, instigating this conflict here. Now, this is a deep theory, but what if an outside party moved these stones? What if Larys or somebody else sent some agents to move these stones so that this conflict could be instigated faster? I mean, these houses already have a history of hating each other, but who knows? There could be an outside force at play. Wouldn't put it past Larys.
Fuck the assize. And fuck you. This is our land.
They talk about this assize at River Run. So apparently House Tully could have given more land to the Brackens here. And we don't see that play out. We just hear a little throwaway dialogue. Side note, this dude would be a perfect choice, or maybe a decent choice to play Link in a live action Zelda. I mean, look, the dude's got the facial structure. He's young enough. Sign him up.
This is our land.
It's Bracken land.
No, it's Bracken land, or is it Blackwood land? We don't know whose land it actually is or who moved the stones, but it's not going to be good for either of them.
Babe killer.
What did you say?
House Bracken supports the Greens as he calls the Blackwoods supporters of a babe killer, Rhaenyra.
Your false Queen Rhaenyra is a kinslayer.
Even people that have no honor still value the idea of kinslaying, having a supremely negative effect on one's reputation in this world. So it's like the lowest of the low. Even the criminals would say kinslaying is bad.
Let me tell you, Aegon Targaryen is no true king.
The Blackwoods denounce King Aegon, and he calls this guy a pussy.
You are no true knight.
And a coward.
You're both raven.
Now, Blackwood made the first offensive move. They pushed this guy down. All right, so I'm going to say it's Blackwood's fault for starting this fight. Could have been civil up until this point. Now, Bracken guy here does escalate it further by whipping out his sword. I guess he can get it up for Blackwoods. Interesting here, though. The Blackwood guy only has a dagger. Where's his sword? I don't see his sword. And he eggs him on, and he says you wouldn't dare.
You wouldn't dare.
Now, we all know how that's going to end. And boy, it ends pretty quickly here. Basically, we see the Blackwood's body, and then it pans up to reveal an entire battlefield. Just a desolated wasteland of bodies with the burning mill still turning slowly in the background. There's that symbolism there for you. Now, people are going to be upset that they skipped a battle, but I think that's a very basic normie approach to this kind of show. If you were a fan of the early seasons of Game of Thrones, they did this a couple times as well. And it's because that the story is not really about how the battle went down. The story is about the effects and the meaning behind the battle. So I'm okay with this. I know we're going to get actual, more meaningful, full-scale war sequences later on in the season as they use their budget wisely. So I don't know, taking up a whole 5 to 6 minutes for this battle that wasn't even built up to that well probably would have been a waste of money on screen. So I was okay with just showing the aftermath and getting to the point of the story quickly. Let me know in the comments if this bugged you though. It's fine if it does, but I understand why they did it. Now, this wasn't an official battle of blacks versus greens. They kind of took it upon themselves, these two houses, to sort out their conflict in the worst way possible. But it does reflect the greater war at play because they are on opposing sides. So technically the first skirmish or battle of the Civil War here. We're going to get crazy after this. I just know it's going to go downhill from here, but uphill for the viewers as we're going to get insane battles with dragons, troops, all that shit. It's coming. So just be patient. We then cut to Eric and Arik in the grave together, and they once shared a womb together as well. They were born as twins. They die as twins. It's a pretty nice wrap up of their arc, of their Arik. Okay, forgive me for that one. Jacaerys says something interesting about Eric here.
He sullies the grave of his brother.
Talking about how he soiled the grave of his brother. He doesn't believe that there's multiple sides to this. He doesn't understand the layers to a soldier's loyalty and to the morality of war. He's very black and white. So Rhaenyra tells him this.
I cannot fault him for keeping his oath.
What of those who sent him?
She understands that the pawns on either side are not at fault for following their loyalties. She actually respects both soldiers in the end, even though he tried to take her life. She's kind of the wise mother, you know, a ruler of wisdom, which is sort of a theme that's hit on later in this episode by Rhaenys as well. They're giving Rhaenyra a more open mind of mercy and kindness compared to someone like Alicent and someone like Aegon on the other side. Now, Jace does have a little more Aegon in him. He wants to see this war as black and white, and he wants to go headfirst into the conflict, where Rhaenyra is a little more skeptical. Now, Rhaenys talks about Otto Hightower and how he would not, you know, see this kind of action taken.
Otto Hightower would never allow this.
But he did want to kill Rhaenyra in the previous season. Correct me if I'm wrong. So kind of interesting that she would say this.
Hotter blood has prevailed, I think.
Hotter blood is definitely going to be prevailing. Lots of hot blood, if you know what I mean. Burning bodies coming soon.
Soon they will not even remember what it was that began the war in the first place. That is easy enough. They usurped my throne. That's just one answer.
Now, Rhaenys talks about not even remembering why the war started. And this is similar to the Bracken and Blackwood conflict, which is like a microcosm or a metaphor or an allegory relating to the conflict of the Blacks and the Greens. It's just a bunch of tit for tat. And eventually, it's just going to be a war for war's sake. And neither side is going to be truly in the right or able to defend themselves. This cycle of violence and blood is just going to continue in the way it did with the Brackens and the Blackwoods. She goes back and forth with Rhaenyra here, talking about who's really at fault for this war.
Or was it when the child was beheaded? Or when Aemon killed Luke? Or when Luke took Aemon's eye?
She even goes all the way back to Aemon losing his eye. It all started with Viserys getting sick, in my eyes, but that's not an actual action he's responsible for. So it could be argued that it was the removal of the eye, you know, or even the claiming of Vhagar. There's a lot of places you can go back to say this is where it started. You know, it's hard to tell, but it's far gone. The conflict is here, and Rhaenyra is going to have to accept that. Rhaenys talks about another way of solving this conflict before it gets out of hand.
Alicent Hightower. She came to me in the hours after your Lord Father's death. She knows war is coming, and that it will be savage beyond all compare.
This is setting up the meeting later in the episode for Alicent and Rhaenyra, which I have a lot of problems with, even though it was a very interesting scene. We'll go over that later. She even goes a little far with Rhaenyra here, talking about how she allowed the killing of Jaehaerys.
She sent a raven. I do not care to read her message. What she did is not her, but the men around her who seek bloodshed. She permitted it, as you permitted the murder of a little boy in his bed.
Now, it's interesting, Rhaenyra seems very convicted in her idea of taking out Alicent as the ruler, or at least, you know, getting her throne back, but then she doesn't want to dive into the conflict and truly take charge. Do you want Alicent off the throne, or do you want to be peaceful? Because those two things can't happen at the same time. We then cut to sad boy Lord Hand, Kristen Cole here. He's looking suicidal. He just does not know what to do with his new position. He's stressed out beyond belief, and he's even wearing this necklace of hands. So instead of the traditional pin that you would wear on your clothing, he puts a chain of hands around his armor. Now, you could take this as a symbolism that he's being choked out by his position, like he's just being strangled by the responsibilities of power and the conflict of his actions taken behind the scenes. You know, he wants to be this upstanding, you know, shining light as a Knight of the Kingsguard, and now as Lord Hand, but he knows deep down he's not that guy. So a lot of conflict within Kristen, obviously. He's choking on his aspirations.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
Don't be a Krennic. Squire comes in and tells him, you're late for the meeting, douchebag. Get in there. We see the new green banners going up around the city. These are the kind of the new branding of Aegon. It's got the Targaryen dragon symbol mixed with the gold and green colors that reflect both the fire of House Targaryen and the royalty of House Hightower. So New branding for King Aegon's dynasty. Kristen Cole walks down these stairs and comes upon some new members of the Kingsguard who clearly shouldn't be Kingsguard at all. These are Aegon's bros, and they're just sitting around lounging, totally undisciplined. Just absolute bozo move for Aegon to appoint these guys to the Kingsguard, especially without consulting Kristen first, who's now the Lord Hand and the head of the Kingsguard. Aegon being Aegon, right? Dumbass. And Kristen sees this. He's like, look at his face. He's like, are you kidding me? These are the bozos I have to leave in charge of protecting Aegon now. Like, how did they get on the Kingsguard? Did somebody read their resumes? These guys are idiots. They seemingly have no respect for Kristen. They get up very slowly. They don't even address him with any reverence at all. Dude was playing with his sword on the stairs like a kid. No signs of courtesy or respect for Kristen. Now, douchebag Kristen comes into the meeting late, and we see another member of the Kingsguard. We got 3 new Aegon bros on the board here. We also see Aemon sitting directly across from Aegon, and you could take this as some sort of symbolism of their conflicting natures, or their conflicting egos, rather, that ends up actually playing out further this episode, which is nice. And we see the squire in the background. He's also going to be involved in the episode. It's cool that they placed him in here early, if you take note, so he doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Kristen grabs his ball and takes his seat with a nice new chair for him with the Lord Hand symbol. He rejects the wine. He's a very serious man, a man of air quotes honor.
You've appointed new knights to the Kingsguard, Your Grace.
Yep, he's appointed 3 bozos, so get used to it, Kristen.
To replace those we lost.
The last one needlessly, some might say.
Even this guy's like, he's always calling out the council. Like, Jasper's always spitting facts. We love a good Jasper comment in the High Council meetings. Kristen goes on to defend himself for making the choice to send Eric to his death, but nobody's really on board with this.
Sir Eric was awarded the great duty of ending Rhaenyra's challenge. He failed to discharge it.
Aemon's like, dude, let me get on my damn dragon and go burn some shit.
House Bracken took it upon themselves to attack the Blackwoods, who declared for the Pretender.
Okay, the conflict has started. Let's end it as fast as possible with as much fire, as much blood as we can have. Because I'm hungry. He's the dude. Look at him. He's itching to put his sword in something else other than a local prostitute. He says the Brackens attacked the Blackwoods, but we saw it as the Blackwoods approaching the Brackens. Now, who actually took the first stab? We didn't see, so it's up for interpretation. But Aemon's just spinning it as, look, Rhaenyra's camp made the first move. Even though it wasn't a move in support of Rhaenyra, it was more of a move against the Blackwoods. Those can be construed as the same thing, but it wasn't exactly that simple. Jasper confirms my sentiments as well. He's like, look, this is not blacks versus greens. This was a simple family skirmish.
The Blackwoods and the Brackens have feuded for centuries. This is nothing more than an excuse for them to indulge their ancient grudge. It's no true war.
But Aegon doesn't see it like that.
I call it war.
He calls it war.
The question is, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to get on your dragon and go burn some shit? Or are you going to piss off and go have some drinks with the boys? We'll see. He asked this question and nobody really knows what the hell to say. They're all scared of saying the wrong thing. They're all scared of making a big, bold move in the council here. And Otto would have been the guy that would have steered this meeting in a clear direction. The rest of the council outside of Kristen is talking about these moves that can be made potentially in weeks or months. But Kristen's just like, nah, we're going to gay.
Speed is my ally. I will turn the crown land houses who declared for Rhaenyra to our cause. We will add their numbers to our own and then turn west.
He wants to get out of the keep. He wants to take out his anger against Rhaenyra's army at any cost. And he wants to do it fast. Tylan makes fun of the maester here.
Aim to unite these armies and then strike as one.
Ah, the great military mind of the Citadel. Do remind me, which link in your chains?
Do remind me, did you even study war? Have you even been to war? It's such a douchebag move of Tylan, but I love it.
This council must rediscover the discipline it lately had is to be of any use.
I agree. Let's get Otto Hightower back in this bitch. Come on, where is Otto when you need him? Where is he? I talk about the Riverlands again.
The Riverlands are the key to the war.
Being the key to the war. This is going to be a huge battle at the Riverlands coming up next episode or the episode after. I'm telling you, it's coming. Stay tuned, stay patient. We're getting fire and blood. Kristen wants to go to the Riverlands to Harrenhal right away.
Bold scheme indeed.
Well, the gods favor the bold.
They did not favor Sir Eric.
Kristen's just laughing at the death of Eric. What a bastard.
And you'll take Aemond and Rhaegar.
Aemon's like, yes, I'm gonna go burn some shit. And Kristen's like, nah, put your dick away, Aemon. Put your dragon away. Well, he actually takes his dick out later. But put your dick away, Aemon. No dragons needed. I'm Kristen Cole. All I need's a horse and a few of Rhaenyra's armies to back me. What? This guy's crazy.
I'll come too with Sunfire.
Aegon.
Your Grace.
You'll need a dragon.
Okay, Aegon, you're gonna hop on Sunfire, who you barely ever ride. You're gonna get into battle, which you never fought in, and just go ham. I'd like to see this, but no, don't. This is stupid.
What will you do if you encounter one or more of Rhaenyra's dragons?
We will be more likely to encounter one if we field one of our own.
Kristen's calling the bluff on Rhaenyra's side, saying they're not going to use their dragons. It's like a nuclear Cuban Missile Crisis conflict here. It's like, look, we can't take our nukes out because if we take our nukes out, they'll take their nukes out, and it's just going to be a nuke fest. We don't want that. Let's go on a stealth Black Ops mission. But how covert can you be traversing a countryside with an army? We're going to see how that plays out for him in a bit. Aemon tells Aegon to remain.
It's a brave thought. We cannot risk your loss.
But I don't know if he's doing it out of actual empathy or if he doesn't want to have Aegon take some of the glory that would be his. You know, that's an interesting perspective. I'm not sure if it holds up, but let me know in the comments what you think about that. Do you think he actually cares a lot? We see in the previous season, he has a conflicting nature within him. He thinks he'd be a better king. He thinks he's a better fighter. He is. And he kind of doesn't respect Aegon, although he cares for him just enough. It's an interesting dynamic inside of his head.
I'm as fearsome as any of them.
That line right there tells me that Aegon might think, you know, Aemon is downplaying his ability to get his hands dirty. No one wants to argue, and Jasper even goes for a drink. He's like, fuck this shit. I have nothing to say here. We then see a dragon screeching, and it's sea smoke. Now, what can this mean? We saw Rhaenyra's dragon whining and wailing at the death of one of the other riders, the rider, and her dragon's hatchling, if you will. So dragons often express their emotions like this. Now, it could be no deeper than it's just hungry or whatever, but there is something that might happen with Sea Smoke later in the story. And it could be signaling that Laenor has removed his bond with the dragon completely, either by being too far away for too long, or maybe he's dead. We have no clue where Sea Smoke's rider is at this point in the story. Now, I don't think Laenor's ever going to come back, but I do think Sea Smoke is going to come back in a big way, obviously being teased here throughout this season so far. Now, none other than Mysaria is looking upon this great beast as she gets approached by Rhaenyra.
I was told you turned back from your ship to bring warning.
I was not believed at first.
You saved my life.
Basically, this scene is Rhaenyra rewarding Mysaria for her loyalty and her good deed in the form of giving her a position as a master of whisperers of sorts, a council member, a advisor of sorts to Rhaenyra herself.
What price would you set?
A place at your court.
Mysaria is pretty set up here. She's got a good deal. And I think she despises the Hightowers for never cleaning up the streets of King's Landing.
You showed me grace when you could have withheld it. I know the workings of the Red Keep. I would punish the Hightowers for what they have done.
So she's like, hey, maybe I can do some good on the side of Rhaenyra here. She believes in the cause. Now, I knew this was going to happen, and this is sort of a thread playing out from the storyline in the previous episode where Rhaenyra, in her good graces, let Mysaria go free. And I called this a contrivance so that she could end up discovering Sir Arik conveniently on the same trail walking down to the boats. And in my eyes, I still see it that way. But a lot of you guys took issue with that in the comments. I understand where you're coming from, but this storyline is one of the more convenient ones in the plot so far. And it's going to be even more convenient in this episode. Mysaria is like a cheat code of sorts. Say what you will about the character. I think she's all right. The actor's not terrible, but she's a little OP. She just gets everything. She's like a cheat code. You know, it's like plugging in a Game Shark to your Nintendo 64. If you're old enough to understand that, you're my guy or my girl. You're my person, okay? Game Shark. Wow. Who knew that Game of Thrones would pull a Game Shark reference out of my brain? Anyways, Mysaria, the White Worm. She's Game Shark. She's cheat codes for Rhaenyra. She's going to have a lot of power and influence in this conflict. So a cool key player to see. And I like the moves she ends up making. They just, I'll go over the details of that when it happens later. We then get an interaction with Rhaena and Rhaenyra here. Rhaenyra is sending Joffrey to the Vale with the dragon.
I decided to send Joffrey to Ward with my cousin, Lady Jane Arryn. She's pledged an army in return for a dragon. Aegon and Viserys will accompany him until a place of greater safety can be found.
She's also going to send Rhaena to go look after them, be a mother of sorts. This is sort of the biggest conversation I think we've had with her.
I'm sorry to put this upon you. It breaks my heart to send my boys away.
Rhaenyra says she was sorry to send Rhaena away, but she's more worried about her kids. So, I don't know, Rhaena's kind of getting the short end of the stick here. But if I was her, I would probably be happy to get away from all this conflict and have the safest opportunity at a good life. But that's just not how Targaryen blood works. They want to be at the heart of the conflict. They want to fight for their house, for duty and honor and blood and fire and all that. She's not happy with being sent away. We then get one of the most epic scenes in this episode, probably the most epic scene, as we see Caraxes with Daemon riding to Harrenhal. And oh boy, if this doesn't evoke some sort of Dark Souls energy inside of you, then I don't know what will. It's just one of the coolest looking scenes we have in this show so far. You see the looming figure and shadow of Harrenhal and the dragon looking rather small in comparison. Interesting little symbology there, if you will. Does that mean that Harrenhal is going to be an overwhelming challenge for Daemon. Well, physically, likely not, but mentally, Harrenhal could be a very strange place, and it will prove to be for Daemon in this episode. Now, if you're not a longtime book reader or a fan of the lore, I'll drop a little nugget for you guys out there who don't know, but Harrenhal was originally burned by the conqueror, Aegon himself, back in the day. And now it's in sort of a state of disrepair. The roofs are leaking. A lot of the stone has been literally microwaved. It's sort of melting around itself. It's an interesting and eerie sight to see for sure. Not a castle you exactly want to live in, but it is one of the biggest, I think the biggest stronghold in the land. And it's located in the Riverlands, which is a huge, huge asset for either side to take control of in the war. And that's why Daemon's here. We get an epic shot of the landing of Caraxes, and the dragon has never looked better. This is one of the just most clear shots. Even though it is at nighttime in the rain, it's one of the most up close, steady, clear shots we've gotten of Daemon and Caraxes here. And look at the armor. This guy looks like a Dark Souls character. I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls. I've been playing Elden Ring lately, so forgive me. They should do a DLC, a Targaryen DLC. I'd be on that. Westeros DLC. Now look at this. This is like a dungeon from a video game. Yes, I'm going to say Dark Souls again. Forgive me. But look at this. Man, it's just lacking enemies that will one-shot you. And Daemon's looking for a fight. But is he going to get one? Not really. He makes his way through the castle. We see the roots of a weirwood tree here, which is foreshadowing some sort of potential involvement of spirits and magic in this world, especially when it comes to Daemon. It's as if the dark magic of the Weirwoods has taken over this place and is now haunting it. We see that physically represented here with the Weirwood root. Daemon's walking through this place and he's like, where the hell is everybody? I want to fight. I'm ready. I got my sword up. I got full armor. Caraxes is at the ready, but all he sees is shadows and distant screeches of bats. The atmosphere of this place is the spookiest thing about it. It's not even the physical prowess that he has to meet because there is nobody here. And that's going to be a theme for Daemon going forward, is just battling the atmosphere of this place and the demons within him. Even the banners are in ruins. Daemon finally encounters his first enemy. A lowly, lonely castle guard here just gets absolutely soloed. Dude, I would not want to be that guy. He opens the keep and he sees a round table of House Strong. And this dude does not give a shit which side he's on. He just wants to eat his venison here.
I'm claiming Harrenhal.
Apparently so.
Hey, I'm here to take your shit. He's like, yep, go ahead. Just let me eat. So he immediately bends the knee to Daemon.
I, Sir Simon Strong, Castellan of Harrenhal, pledge fealty to Rhaenyra of House Targaryen.
Daemon's like, are you kidding me? I wanted to chop your head off and take this place, but you're just giving it to me on a silver platter. But Daemon thinks this is too easy, so maybe they're gonna poison me.
That venison is well aged. Shan't let it waste.
I've survived many a battle. I do not mean to be felled by poison peas.
Honestly, if I was in Daemon's shoes here, what I would do is I would walk over to Lord Strong and I would switch plates and see if he eats my plate. If he doesn't, then he knows the loyalties and he knows the motivations of House Strong here. But he doesn't do that. That was just something that popped in my head if I was writing the show. He even takes a fork and just throws it on the ground.
Peas.
I'll admit that.
Daemon doesn't give a shit about food. He wants war.
I'll admit that my cook's peas aren't exactly the stuff of legend, but poison.
Well, it's an easy way to kill a dragon rider.
Would be the best way to kill a dragon rider. You're right. You can't really take them out with typical traditional means. You got to backstab them or poison them or cut their heads off before they can even reach the age of being a dragon rider while they're sleeping. Lord Strong tries to convince Daemon that he's welcome, but Daemon's not buying it all the way.
If you've not yet surmised, you are welcome here.
What of your lord, Larys Strong? He who sits at the false court of Aegon.
He's a scourge upon this country.
He knows Larry Strong is kind of not the best guy, and he's definitely against Rhaenyra, so why would this Strong here not have the same position? Well, it's pretty obvious.
Larys Clubfoot is no lord of mine.
Now, it's easy to judge this fat old strong man, literally how strong, as just a, carefree, bozo, lackluster leader of Harrenhal, but he's actually more keen than he seems.
Do you not think it strange that his father, my nephew, Lord Lionel, perished by fire, and his son too, here in this damp place? It was the first fire here since Valerion ended the line of Harren the Black.
He understands that Larys doesn't actually have the best interests of House Strong in mind, and he even thinks that it's not a coincidence that a fire started and burned the two leading members of House Strong that now enabled Larys to take control of Harrenhal, essentially. So he's going to side with Daemon.
So no, you will find no loyalty to Larys Strong here, my prince.
Your grace.
He also calls him a prince. Big mistake. Daemon wants to be called your grace. Now, this is interesting because I believe in the books and definitely in the original series of Game of Thrones, the queen was still called Your Grace. So why doesn't the king who's married to the queen or the prince who's married to the queen not also get this title by default? I don't know. In the comments, let me know the logistics of how this works in Westeros. It's sort of seen as a petty, almost backstabbing move to be calling himself Your Grace or to be wanting to be labeled as Your Grace, almost a disrespect to Rhaenyra. But in my eyes, it just seems like, wouldn't they both be Your Grace? It clearly affects Daemon here. He doesn't want the title of prince. That's never been his goal. So he still has that selfish desire for power within him, and it comes out in this scene. This guy's like, oh, sorry.
Forgive me, I only assumed that as consort.
And we are reminded of the perilousness of assumption.
Your Grace.
He's like, do not make that mistake again. I'll chop your head off. They argue about the value of Harrenhal, as it is a big stronghold, the biggest, but also it's kind of a piece of shit.
Harrenhal is the largest castle in the Seven Kingdoms.
It's also, not to be argumentative, in something of a state of disrepair.
That is precisely why we must bring it into a state of repair.
Daemon's like, okay, it's a piece of shit, but we could still put a new engine in this bitch and get it running. Let's go. Daemon talks about how the Riverlands has the most swords to offer, and this is the place to put them.
There are 40,000 swords in the Riverlands, the largest undeclared host in the realm. Only Harrenhal is of a size enough to garrison them.
You should know that a substantial number of those swords have now declared and are presently at war.
Old Man Strong here says, well, yeah, but they're not all yours, bro. He then goes on to hit on this theme of the cycle of violence and the cycle of revenge and warfare in Westeros here.
Houses Bracken and Blackwood have long detested one another.
Why?
The answer to that is lost in time. Sin begets sin, begets sin.
Again, this is an allegory referring to the bigger conflict between the House Black and House Green. And that's sort of the theme of this episode, the burning mill, the cycle of violence, the cycle of blood.
That would be Lord Grover Tully, but he grows frail. It's said that he can no longer speak or seal his bowels.
He talks about Lord Tully and how he's in no position to be making political moves. And that's probably why nobody respected his decision to give more lands to the Breckons earlier. They're like, dude, the guy's senile, you know? I don't respect the... did he even say that? Are you making this shit up? So there's not a very strong leadership in the Riverlands right now, which might be a good thing. Perhaps this will make it more easy for Daemon to manipulate the Tullys, or perhaps it'll just cause more problems.
Whatever his condition. Perhaps the presence of the crown and a dragon.
He's like, when he sees my Targaryen armor and my bloody big dragon, he's going to be shitting his pants for multiple reasons. We then get the funniest bar of the episode right here from Daemon.
We march on King's Landing and take the throne.
The throne?
It's a big chair made of swords.
This guy just thinks Strong is a total idiot. He knows what the throne is. He's flabbergasted that you're going to go so directly for it, bro. I don't know. Damon's a funny guy. We then get the introduction of a new, or I guess returning character. He was in the tourney in the first episode, I believe. This is Gwayne Hightower, the brother of Alicent.
May I present my brother, Sir Gwayne Hightower? Arrived last night from Elton.
I believe Daemon beat the shit out of him previously. Correct me if I'm wrong. So he's got a big reason to go to war against the Blacks. But also, he's not really a fan of Kristen. We also see Kristen rocking a new haircut. He's a new man on a new mission. A violent mission, that is.
How exhilarating to arrive at court after 3 long months on the road to find my Lord Father unseated as Hand of the King.
He's like, bro, you stole my dad's job. He used to be CEO, and now you're CEO. For what? You're just a common, low-born Dornishman. Gwayne's kind of a douchebag, though. They're both, this is like douche on douche action right here. It's quite the scene. I think we're going to love these two guys together throughout the season.
Sir Gwayne has volunteered to accompany you into battle.
I think Alicent is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a babysitter for Kristen here. She's like, here, take my brother with you. He's gonna make sure you don't do anything stupid, and he's gonna keep you in check, or at least just be a thorn in your side. Because I don't know, there's a lot of weird energy between Alicent and Kristen, and now throwing this wrench, aka Gwayne, into the equation is an interesting dynamic, an interesting move from the Hightowers. Maybe it's also a move on Otto's side to have, for lack of better words, a hand in Kristen's actions as hand. You know, it's sort of the Hightowers keeping their influence and chokehold, literally, over Kristen. Even though he is Lord Hand, he still has these, you know, competing factions around him that he has to appease, especially when it comes to the royal Hightowers. Well, they're not exactly royal, but they are royal adjacent. You know, they're one of the richest families, and now they're connected to the crown via marriage. You get what I mean?
The march will be hard, sir. No one is more delighted than I to march out to war with the Dornishmen.
The Dornish have a history of conflict with the Hightowers. I believe in the lore, they used to like raid and burn Hightower villages and towns and stuff like that. So there's a history there, which is why he makes that remark. We get this really awkward interaction between Kristen and Alicent.
May the servant guide you. Good night. And lead you not into shadow and death.
She's like, yeah, go to war, dude, but I hope you don't die. It's like, I don't know, she's feigning some sort of attachment here, or she's resisting the attachment. It's weird. Kristen's just like, okay. But then he does this in public, asking for her favor.
And request that she grant her favor, that her Lord Commander may go into battle with her blessings.
Which is not something a Kingsguard should necessarily be doing. It's almost like flirting with Alicent in public here. He just does not give a shit anymore. I don't know. He wants to pull at her strings because he's very attached to her, whether he wants to admit it or not. So she pulls out her bra and gives it. No, I'm just kidding. She pulls out her handkerchief and gives it to Kristen.
Your Grace.
It's like they're fighting with acts of kindness. It's so veiled, so passive aggressive. They just don't know how to act. They're like the same character in two different bodies. So Kristen and the Hightower troops are heading out for war. I just love the details in the horse armor and everything. The costuming is fantastic in this show, as always. We see he's got a semi-sizable troop here, but it's not a giant big army. It's not a few guys, but it's definitely not an entire army. He's going to have to turn a bunch of troops to his side as he makes his way through the countryside, as they spoke of in the High Council. But can he do it? Will he do it? Time will tell. Rhaenys has come back from a patrol shift on her dragon, obviously, as she's seen taking off her gloves here, and she talks about she didn't see shit.
No men, no horses, no ships, no dragons.
Good.
The Hightowers apparently are not making moves, even though they are, subtly with Kristen. This creates an opportunity for Rhaenyra to strike first and get the upper hand, which is what her council wants to do, but Rhaenyra is still like, no, hang tight.
Then we must seize the hour and act. They have penetrated our castle walls, and now the Riverlands are aflame after the Battle of the Burning Mill.
They ask about Daemon, and they're like, we don't know what the hell Daemon's doing. Hopefully he's doing it.
There has been no word from Prince Daemon, Your Grace.
Then we must press what advantage we do have.
This dude's like, give me all the dragons. Let's go. Let's burn this shit.
Dragons. Send them all out. Start turning green strongholds to our cause. And burn those who resist.
I kind of like this dude. He's sort of the Jasper on this side of the War Council. You know, the Greens have Jasper, a man of facts and a man of just downright base logic. And then we have this dude here who's always speaking his mind. He's always speaking true. He does push the line a little bit, though. But he's a funny guy. Good character.
If dragons begin fighting dragons, we invite our own destruction. Fear of it is in itself a weapon.
It's interesting because Rhaenyra is talking about the same mindset that Kristen has. She's talking about the idea that we don't need to use our dragons because that's only going to escalate things. We just need to keep them in the background, looming over the war as a potential presence, but we don't need to strike with them because that's just going to set the whole country on fire. Again, like a nuclear stalemate. These guys are laughing at Rhaenyra, and Rhaenys is like boiling underneath the surface here. She's not having it. We do like Rhaenys for backing Rhaenyra up, but she's sort of a little too self-righteous. I mean, she did stomp out a bunch of commoners on her way out of King's Landing. She also could have ended the war with one breath of her dragon. She had the entire Hightower Greens family and Aegon on the stage and just dipped out. I don't know. Interesting choice, Rhaenys. I still think it was the right choice. It wasn't her choice to make, but she could have solved it all right there, for better or worse.
The value of a sword is not within its scabbard.
We will secure victory with armies, not with dragons alone.
This dude's like, a dragon is meant to be used. A sword needs to be unsheathed. Let's do this. Like, he's getting restless, and so are we as the audience. I think this dude represents the audience. He's like, we want fire, we want blood, we want dragons. We want the CGI budget to be put to use. Come on, let's go. Rhaenyra's clearly growing restless as well, but for a different reason. She's tired of her council kind of fighting against her will. Now, these guys push even further here, and they want Rhaenyra to just take a hike so they can start declaring war all over the place.
You have never been so exposed. Perhaps it is time for you to think about secreting yourself somewhere safe. While we remain here.
He's like, why don't you take a vacation to Tahiti or something? Or Yee, better yet, and get the fuck out of here so we can start burning shit. Now, I don't know, the way they're talking down to her is kind of disrespectful. Rhaenys sees this, of course, but would they talk this way to Viserys? Even though he was a weaker, less confrontational leader as well, would they do this if it wasn't Rhaenyra? I don't know.
He proposed to conduct the war in my absence.
It would merely be a precaution.
It would be treason.
She's like, if you want to kick me out, don't veil your threats here. You're trying to get rid of me and take charge of this. That's treason. She's not having it. Dude, I think this guy is going to do something in the future that's going to get his head chomped off by Daemon. Like, chopped or chomped. But either way, I don't think this guy is long for this world. They're really setting him up to push a boundary too far this season. And Rhaenyra is going to serve him up to a dragon or something. I feel it in my bones. Rhaenys again flexes her power on the council as she backs up Rhaenyra here.
This council would do well to remember that their queen wears the crown of my grandsire, Jaehaerys the Conciliator.
She compares her to Jaehaerys, who was probably the best, most well-respected, well-rounded, peaceful ruler in the Targaryen dynasty thus far. So a heavy comparison. I don't know if Rhaenyra can meet that standard, though. We then cut to a scene at the Valerion shipyard, and we see this lonely smith grinding daggers like he's playing Skyrim, trying to level up his character. Interesting move there. We also see Corlys and Rhaenys underneath the boardwalk here. They put Rhaenys' character on a pedestal, almost looking down on Corlys, as she is kind of doing that in this scene, literally and figuratively, as we'll see. They're also kind of backed into this corner here, which maybe I'm reaching too far with the visual symbolism, the cinematic symbolism, but I don't know, they're in a tough position with having to support Rhaenyra. I mean, they're grinding away in the rain to get their ships ready to keep the blockade against the Greens going. So they're doing everything they can. They're throwing their whole weight at Rhaenyra's cause. This conversation is all about the succession of the Valerions. Who's going to take over Driftmark when Corlys meets his end, which could be sooner rather than later, especially in time of war, but we'll see.
I bade farewell to Rhaena before I return.
I wish her well.
Corlys, seemingly doesn't care that much about Rhaena, and he doesn't care that much about Joffrey. He doesn't really see them as valid, competent heirs to his position.
One of those babes is your heir.
Joffrey, a boy of 6 who knows nothing of the sea.
It's interesting because before he was backing Lucerys as the heir, who was also in a similar position as Rhaena and Joffrey, not knowing anything of the sea. Even Lucerys himself said it. I'm no ruler of Driftmark. It's going to be a shit show if I take over. But now I think Corlys has switched sides on that position. I wish they would have did a little more character work to make us understand why he's doing this. It is a little bit out of left field. It does make sense for the character to want a more competent heir, but last season he seemed fine with just having Lucerys take over. So I don't know. Now I said Rhaenys was looking down on him. She's kind of upset that he's not making a firm decision and setting up their dynasty.
There is Rhaena or there is Joffrey. Both soon to be far from the creak of ships on the ocean's roar.
He's waiting. He's biding his time. He's trying to make a different decision, but he's not making it quick enough in Rhaenys' eyes. So she does not agree with his position here. She wants to take charge of this issue. Corlys just says, hold my beer. I got this. Don't worry. And he walks away.
We are at war, Corlys. Something was before you.
Then it is well that I am a good sailor.
We then get a shot of Rhaena and we get an Easter egg or a dragon egg of sorts that relates back to the original series of Game of Thrones with the dragon eggs that are supposed to be falling into the hands of young Daenerys Targaryen later on in the timeline. And I believe this is confirmed that these are those exact eggs.
I cannot spare a fighting dragon. Stormcloud and Tyraxes are small. It is for you to remind Lady Jane of her pledge.
Lady Arryn wanted a full-scale dragon to protect her lands, and Rhaenyra's sending some eggs and a baby dragon. And it's just like, it might not be enough. I mean, we saw how this kind of reminder of your oath went down with Lucerys previously when she didn't have much to offer to the Baratheons, and that didn't go too well. So fingers crossed that it goes a little better this time. I mean, she is throwing in a baby dragon, so maybe Lady Arryn will take that and run with it. But who knows? Could be a bad move on Rhaenyra's end here. We then get a scene with Helaena and her mother Alicent here. Helaena seems to be dealing with the death rather better than expected, as she talks about the struggles of the common folk compared to her.
I feel sad about Jaehaerys, but I ought not to, I think. That horrid procession where the small folk all stared at me. Surely they lose their babes more than highborn ladies.
Alicent says it's okay to be sad, but Helaena is sort of taking on this new, almost political viewpoint, and she's saying, yeah, we can be sad, but what does it get us?
Sadness is a condition of motherhood.
There's not to be gained from it.
So she's really being affected by the machinations of her family, and she doesn't see sadness as something that's acceptable in this kind of new perspective, this new frame of thinking. That's something that Otto Hightower would say. You know, Otto is really getting to her. This whole political machine is really getting to her, and it's showing. Alicent talks about how she's obviously just been worried about Helaena rather than Jaehaerys. And Helaena forgives Alicent here, but what for?
Helaena,
I forgive you.
What?
I said that I forgive you.
Is it for using the death of Jaehaerys? Is it for sleeping with Kristen? Or is it for something else that she's foreseeing in the future? Because as we know, she kind of predicts shit in a weird way before the events happen, being a Greenseer, a dragon dreamer of sorts, you know, with the Targaryen bloodline magic. She's got a really strong connection to that spiritual nature. So we don't know what exactly she's apologizing for. My first guess was the obvious thing. I'm sorry that I saw you having sex with Kristen, a man of the Night's Watch sworn to celibacy mercy, but there you were. I forgive you. And I think that's how Alicent takes it too, but it could be something else. We don't know. We then get a scene with the new Kingsguard bozos and none other than King Aegon himself, suiting up for war, wearing his Targaryen Valerion steel armor.
Valerion steel. Sight to stir the passions. Aegon the Conqueror reborn.
Aegon the Conqueror reborn. These guys they just suck Aegon off so hard. But technically they can't do that anymore because they're sworn to chastity as men of the Night's Watch. But I don't think they give a shit. Then enters Larys Strong, Master of Whisperers, or unofficial Master of Whisperers as of yet.
There are rumors that the king readies himself to fly to war.
What is it to you?
Only that I think it would benefit all of us to prevent our king from being brutally slain by our enemies.
He's like, yeah, y'all bozos are sending out Aegon to his death. Unexperienced, arrogant, overconfident Aegon has no business being out there on the battlefield. First of all, he's a king. Second of all, he's an idiot. He's going to get killed. Let me speak to the dude. Now, Larys, being the cunning master of whispers of sorts that he is, he's going to really play Aegon here with his words. And very carefully, mind you.
There are diverse rumors whispered in the streets of your city. And others that his grace was outwitted by his councillors and persuaded to fly to war with Sir Criston.
It's an art form, okay? He's mastered this shit. Now, it's important to note that he uses the rumors spread by the small folk rather than directly placing blame on Alicent and Aemon and the council members, because if he did that, it would reflect very poorly on him. Instead, he's got this sort of scapegoat middleman in form of the small folk rumors, which are probably either fake or even started by him himself in order to manipulate Aegon into not going out to war and killing himself. Now, why does Larys want to make this move? I'm not sure. Maybe he sees it as a deficit to the position of the Hightowers if Aegon makes this move, which would be a bad thing for him. But maybe also if he feels like he has more direct control over Aegon, he can gain more power for himself by keeping him around and whispering in his ear. He sees Aegon as an easy to manipulate ruler, so he wants to keep him in that place of manipulation. Aegon falls for the trap.
Shall we escort you to the Dragon Pit, Your Grace?
I think mayhaps I shall fly another day.
Come out with us, my king.
And he goes out and gets drunk with the boys, but not before he chastises them about their chastity.
You're sworn to chastity now.
Of course, Your Grace.
They're literally laughing at the fact that they're supposed to, air quotes, follow the Kingsguard rules. And the look on Aegon's face just tells me this is not okay. But I don't think he would actually go through with punishing them for it. So he's stuck in this rock and a hard place. How do I treat my friends like friends while treating them like Kingsguard? I don't think he has the wherewithal to navigate those waters. And to be honest, A, these guys wouldn't be Kingsguard under mostly any other ruler. And B, if they were and they acted like this, they would be gone ASAP. Like if these guys did this to Rhaenyra, she would cut them instantly. So even with Viserys, he probably would not handle this level of disrespect at all. It would be done. But Aegon's sort of a pushover. He's sort of a little bitch here and just, I don't know. He goes out with the boys, like I said. They take the squire out and they go partying in King's Landing amongst the common folk here. And we get a little nightlife in King's Landing. And we see this new character this season that was introduced last episode. He's the guy who was looking upon the rat catchers. And we get an interesting piece of information about this dude. His name is Ulf. Now he sits down with his friends at this table and he lets out a little secret.
I'm not sure I'm much for talking. Although, you know, a wet whistle works wonders.
He trades secrets for beer. What a Chad. Then his friend slaps this girl in the ass.
One for yourself, there's a good girl, eh?
And this is the girl who Aegon sexually assaulted, graped last season. And she had to get an abortion with the moon tea. And she got a sack of coins and was fired from the Red Keep immediately by Alicent. So she's now working as a lowly commoner in the streets of King's Landing as a barmaid. And you can clearly tell she's not gotten over that. She's got this PTSD of sorts. Small detail, but interesting nonetheless.
No sense of fun, some of them.
No sense of fun. Listen, bro, she's a victim. Have some empathy. Of course, they don't know this, though. Now, he tells this Dornishman that he's actually a secret Targaryen.
Although it said even Dawn mourned the passing of my grandsire, is that so?
Who was your grandsire? King Jaehaerys.
He says it'll cost him his head.
I really shouldn't be telling you this. It could cost me my head.
Now, I wonder how much ability he's going to have to affect the plot, or is he kind of going to get axed in this season? I'm not sure if they would bring him in just to axe him, so he's clearly going to have some sort of grander effect on things here. I just wonder what it is. Don't spoil it in the comments, though.
I'm the son of Balon the Brave.
Bastard brother to Prince Daemon.
He's the son of Balon the Brave, the bastard son, a sort of half-brother to Viserys and Daemon. Now, he's got pretty close family ties with Rhaenyra, so obviously he backs her.
Uncle to the one true queen, Rhaenyra Targaryen.
But doing it so publicly out here in the open is, I don't know. Like he said, he could be killed for this. I don't know why he's doing it. Well, obviously he wants to trade some beer for secrets. So he either could be lying or he's just an absolute idiot. I think he's an idiot.
A dragon seed must watch his own neck when he has no white cloaked guardsman to do it for him.
A dragon seed must watch his own neck. But brother, you're not doing a very good job of it by letting these secrets out all over the place just for a flag and a beer. Come on, my guy. As he's talking about the rightful heir to the throne, Jacaerys, it gets super quiet.
The rightful heir to the Iron Throne, my nephew, Prince Jacaerys Valerion.
And who walks in but King Aegon himself? Immediately, this dude bends the knee, so to speak.
All hail the king! All hail the king!
He even starts the chant himself. Dude's a pushover. He doesn't have much conviction, to be honest. I wonder how that's going to play out. Will he actually serve Rhaenyra, or will he end up bending to the will of Aegon and the Greens? But Aegon, being a people pleaser, he loves to be loved by the small folk. So he's like, everybody drinks on me, motherfuckers. Let's do this. Let's get drunk.
Drinks for all! At the pleasure of the crown!
And let's serve the squire up to one of our prostitutes here.
Sit yourself down. Sit!
A specific one in the form of Aemon's first and favorite. We'll see that in a second. Now, I can't show most of this scene, so we're going to skip ahead. If you know, you know. Aegon comes in here all drunk, and he finds Aemon sitting with the motherly prostitute that he's so attached to. And he sort of shames him for this.
Aemon the Fierce, you've come so far, and yet you still lie with your very first.
He's even barking like a dog, like this guy.
Did you fuck her like a hound?
Dude, Aegon's a total douche here. I feel bad for Aemon. He's like, look, this is the one you want. This is the girl. And so they get Aemon to leave and they hand the squire over. And that's the scene. Now, Aemon walks out with his cock out, literally, and he doesn't give a shit. Now, why do they need to have him being naked here? People are like, why? Why? I think it's simply just to show that he doesn't give a shit. He's proud of who he is, and he'll walk away with his cock out. He does not give a shit. He's just that guy. He's got conviction. He doesn't feel ashamed. He simply wants nothing to do with Aegon in this moment. So he, without waiting any further to get dressed, he just walks out. We cut back to Rhaenyra, and she's putting away the toys of young Joffrey, seemingly, as she reminisces. She then takes out a scroll from Alicent, a scroll she's begrudgingly going to read, finally, later in the episode. Then perhaps the most exciting scene of this episode takes place as Sir Gwayne and his little troop are making their way towards a nice, comfy inn, complete with drinks and all.
Sir Gwayne, our company has come back yonder.
On the cold, hard ground, which is why we make for the Bull, a tavern with an excellent reputation on the Rosby Road.
He tells Kristen, I'm a lord of House Hightower, and I will not be sleeping with a common soldier. I'll have myself a flagon of mead and a nice, comfy bed at an inn. And Kristen's like, dude, we're going to war, okay? It's not about getting a night out with the boys.
We march to make the first strike in the name of his grace.
I assure you, my nephew will not begrudge me a night of comfort.
This is just like a side quest for Gwayne here, and this is Kristen's whole mission. He's just not having it. I'm on Kristen's side here. Gwayne's kind of being a douchebag. Kristen's like, you got to meet us like at first light. And this dude's like, well, if we get a little too drunk, maybe it'll be like in the afternoon.
If it soothes your brow, Cole, we will rendezvous with your army at first light. Or if their wine is good, perhaps a little after first light.
What? How is he able to speak like this to the Lord Hand here? Come on, Kristen. The keen eye of Kristen Cole then notices a speck in the sky.
We're exposed.
What? Cole?
And it's none other than Bela and Moondancer patrolling the area, looking for these exact kinds of movements from the Hightowers, from the Greens. Kristen's like, holy shit, get on your horses, get to the trees.
Get to the trees!
Bela sees this, and she gets close enough to recognize Kristen Cole here. Now, when I went back and watched it, she is way closer than I thought she was on the first viewing. So if she does have a keen eye, she could probably recognize Kristen, but it was questionable that she was able to get this close and spot him personally. But I'll let it slide, because if we see in this frame here, she is literally 30 feet away, so makes enough sense in the end. She does not attack, though, because she's held back by her loyalty to the commands of Rhaenyra, obviously. That's interesting to see Kristen so calm in this moment, whereas Gwayne, being the douchebag Lord of Hightower, has far less grit, and he's sort of shitting his pants. But he admits that Kristen was right. We got to take this shit more seriously.
A good showing, Sir Kristen. I'm in your debt.
This is going to mess up the plans for Kristen using speed.
They know we're abroad, they'll be hunting. We must move under the trees and by cover of dark starting tonight.
And no fucking inns.
Now he's going to have to move at nighttime and through a bunch of trees. That's just going to be way tougher for his army to get things done quickly. So good move from Baela here, and I respect that she didn't just burn them down. Although I probably would have burned the shit out of them. Who knows? Maybe that would cause a forest fire though. Could be a bad idea. Baela returns to Dragonstone and tells the council of her findings.
Kristen Cole, with some half-dozen other knights, I'm sure of it.
Rhaenyra even asked the question that was on my mind.
Could you be certain it was Cole? From such a great height.
It was not such a great height, Your Grace.
We do see a little bit of friction between Rhaenyra and Baela as, I don't know, she gives this questioning look to Baela like, you really got that close to disobeying my orders in a sense? You didn't technically disobey me, but you're showing signs of it. And this again is a slight against Rhaenyra's command. And she's just boiling underneath the surface as now even her own family members are seemingly not taking her word as seriously as they should be in her eyes.
The time for action is surely now.
Your Grace, I must agree, and request your permission to return to Rook's Rest and fortify my lands.
The council is at their boiling point, and they're telling Rhaenyra, we need to act. We need to move. Rhaenyra is still not quite buying it, though.
Act now, Your Grace. Loose the dragons, root Cole out, and burn him.
She looks at Rhaenys, and she knows there might be one other way to solve this conflict before it gets truly out of hand.
I have heard your arguments, and will consider them.
She merely gives them a consideration. It's just, it's not going to suffice for her council members. I think this is her political naivety showing. She's being a little more like Viserys than perhaps she should be, but it's not going to give her the upper hand that she needs. And you can see Jace is stirring. He's eager to get to action as well. He's more honorable than dudes like Aegon, but he still has that same sentiment of we need to move. We need to act. We need to declare war before the war comes to us. We then cut to Harrenhal where Daemon is sleeping in a leaky room, or not sleeping, but standing. He's blocked the door with swords. Like, I guess they don't have internal latches to lock. Interesting. But this turns out to be a sort of spiritual magic vision of sorts. It's actually not quite real. So I don't know where reality starts and ends in this sequence, but we can definitely tell it's not real because look who shows up.
Always coming and going, aren't you? And I have to clean up afterwards.
The symbolism is made clearer than ever in this scene. She talks about the mistakes that Daemon makes, the rash, bold moves that he makes behind her back, and how she has to take action and take responsibility for the repercussions and stitch things back together, literally as she's stitching back the head onto the body of Jaehaerys. It's a really on-the-nose symbolism, but it works. And glad to see Millie Alcock back in the episode. I don't know how much more we'll see of her, but this also means we could see characters like Viserys as well returning in these visions, especially being closely tied to the emotional conflict within Daemon. So gonna be curious to see who we see next in these visions. I think we're gonna get more than one. Daemon then drops his sword in the vision and then seemingly comes to and wakes up. Outside near a weirwood tree, which is sort of linked to all this magic in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, in the world of Westeros. They are tied to history, they are tied to magical visions, and they are sort of a window to the world, past, present, future, for characters like Bloodraven and Bran and other Greenseers. And it is said that perhaps these weirwood trees are influencing the spiritual nature surrounding Harrenhal. And they're taking a hold in Daemon's mind now, showing him things that reflect his past and his inner conflict, which is going to be curious to see. I wonder if they're going to give him any visions of the future as well. We also see a new character here who confronts Daemon after his vision.
You will die in this place.
We can see, though, that Daemon is very confused and distraught by this. He's not one to believe in these kind of visions and prophecies and spiritual. He's very physical and literal, and this scares him to be not in control of his own mind and to not understand what he's seeing. But here's the new character. This is Alice Rivers, and she tells Daemon he's going to die here. Now, is that a spoil? Did they just spoil something, or is that perhaps going to be a 50-50? I don't know. I haven't read that far in the books. I know a lot of book knowledge from reading certain chapters here and there, getting excerpts online from other people. So I know enough, but I don't know enough about this storyline. So don't spoil that in the comments. If you can, hold your tongue. We cut back to Rhaenyra, and she's meeting with the White Worm, Mysaria. She asks about Alicent Hightower as she wants to speak with her privately. She thinks this private meeting will solve everything, or at least has the potential to, and she's willing to take a risk to meet her face to face. And here's where the Mysaria cheat code comes into play. she's, she is known to be well connected in the Red Keep, but I don't know. It seems very, very convenient that she can just kind of get Rhaenyra in and out to see Alicent. Now, I love the scene that happens because of this, but how we got there is questionable. Maybe that's just me. Sorry if you don't agree. That's fine. Let me know in the comments. She is a cool character, though. I'll give her that. Sort of master of whisperers now for Rhaenyra. And she gives her the information that there's a place that she will be able to meet Alicent privately.
She is the Queen Dowager. She goes nowhere without many eyes watching her. There is one place Alicent goes. Outside the castle walls. Where you may yet find her alone.
But it's going to be a stealth covert mission required for doing so. And we immediately cut to Rhaenyra going on this mission with one of her Kingsguard. Now they're disguised as a septa and a septon. They're disguised as like religious monks of sorts. It is interesting. I guess if you wear religious shit, you can just sneak into the, the city like that. There's no paperwork. There's no officiating. It's just like, oh, come right in, come one, come all. It is a little convenient. Reminds me of, I don't know, the later seasons of Game of Thrones when shit just became way too easy. What bothered me is she doesn't even cover her Targaryen hair as much as she could have. I would have liked her to, I don't know, pay attention to that detail, as it's very important for her not to be discovered. This dude tucks an Assassin's Creed blade into his robe, and Rhaenyra makes her way up to the Sept to meet with Alicent, a place she's often seen grieving or praying or, reflecting on her inner emotions and conflicts. So it's okay that we see her there. This is where she would be. Now, it is strange that her guards are seemingly not very close at all. I mean, I know it is supposed to be a safe place. It's the Sept. But you would think that even, especially in this time of conflict and war, where things have never been more heated, she would have a close guard. But it seems, I don't know, they're not really an imposing force in this scene at all, which makes it easy for Rhaenyra to conveniently slip in here and have a chat. She goes to sit down next to Alicent. She even pulls a knife preemptively as a way to navigate this situation carefully.
I must speak with you. If I could cry out, your knights would find me. I would be taken or slain. But not before I killed you.
She's like, yeah, if you shout for your guards, I'll just kill you, and then I'll get killed by the guards. And how does that solve anything? So I like the leverage that she plays with in this scenario. It's well done. The conversation, how we got here is questionable, but the actual conversation and the actual scene itself is pretty decent. And it's a very weighted, a very long-awaited, heavy conversation about the final words from Viserys, the thing that kicked off the whole usurping of the throne, at least the justification for it with Alicent.
We watched the tourney together, you and I. We knew, even then, that men trained up for battle are eager to fight.
Rhaenyra tries to play on her empathies as she talks about how neither of them really want this war to go down the way it's seemingly going down right now, and how they're the only two that can really rise to the occasion of settling this conflict with peace and with less clouded minds.
But I know you do not have that desire within you.
But Alicent is like, bitch, you don't have shit. I've got the upper hand, so why are you even trying this?
There are no terms now. You've no army. Your allies turn from you and they hear of your depravity. Your hands are bloody to no crime. I could never have imagined you.
The trespass was not mine.
Rhaenyra then denies that she was responsible for the killing of Jaehaerys, and I think Alicent believes this deep down. And then Alicent does the same thing to Rhaenyra. She's like, I didn't want that to happen.
I'm a mother to you, and you have yet to answer for the murder of my son.
I repudiate that act with all my heart. Of course you do.
We both didn't want to kill sons here, okay? We're both mothers. We both seemingly attempt to love our children. They're both shirking the blame for the deaths of sons. It's just funny. It's a funny dichotomy, a parallel here. They then talk about the changing of Viserys' mind when it comes to the succession with Aegon versus Rhaenyra.
A right he upheld steadfastly every day of his life after my mother died. And yet you will maintain that his mind was changed in an instant.
And the biggest bomb in the episode of the season, I think, is dropped here, metaphorically.
He said he was the prince that was promised to unite the realm.
What?
I desire peace as you do, but to accept.
Did my father use those words?
And Alicent's face is realizing that she fucked up, because Rhaenyra is cluing her into the fact that he was speaking about a completely different Aegon.
He spoke to you of the Song of Ice and Fire. It's a story he once told about Aegon the Conqueror.
The prince who was promised, the man who spoke the prophecy of a song of ice and fire. And that was Viserys' ultimate goal, was to follow that prophecy to its end. And he wanted Rhaenyra on the throne to pass down that prophecy to further Targaryens in the dynasty and have it come to fruition. He wasn't talking about baby Aegon, young little kid Aegon. He was talking about Rhaenyra and Aegon the Conqueror and that whole prophecy, that dynasty that he was setting up. But Alicent, she believes it to be true. She knows it to be true, but she doesn't want to accept it as she does this.
The Conqueror. You must go before you are discovered.
There's been a mistake. There's been no mistake. Please.
There's been no mistake, bitch. You know there's a mistake. I swear. She knows it, but this is Alicent. She's stubborn and she can't let it go. It's gone too far. And even if she did accept the fact that there was a mistake made, it's not going to further her position. It's gone.
A terrible war is looming, and even victory may be so bloody as to be counted a loss. Do not let your pride blind you. No mistake.
It's lost. The time for peace is over, and Alicent is not accepting this at all. She's going to stand her ground, and she leaves Rhaenyra in the dust here. It's too late. Like I said, she's gone. And we see Rhaenyra realizing that she's going to go back to the council and have to start a war. There's no other way. So I think the next episodes are going to be crazy. This build up, 1, 2, 3, these first 3 episodes, I think are setting up for something truly monumental in the latter half of the season. And that's where the episode ends. Guys, what do you think? Tell me in the comments. Are you hyped about this episode, or are you more hyped for the future of the season? Personally, this was a rather slower episode. All the episodes have been kind of a slow pace, a slow burn, if you will. The first 2 episodes, though, did have a really exciting physical conflict at the end of each of them. You know, blood and cheese, and then the Eric Bull, Eric versus Eric, at the end of last episode. This episode ended on a more quaint note, but arguably a harder hitting note. This was the final straw before all-out war is declared. Rhaenyra realizes she made her final attempt at peace talks, and it's not working. I do think it's very interesting, though, how we did get that not a full resolution, but we did get to see the looks on Alicent's face as she realizes that she fucked up. She clearly knows that there was a mistake made, but her pride, as Rhaenyra said, is not allowing her to accept this, and the fact that it's just already too late to even acknowledge this fact. So it's here, guys. Fire and Blood is here. The Dance of Dragons is nigh, and I can't wait for next episode. I think episode 4 is probably going to be the best episode, the most intense episode we see yet in this season. And there's still 4 more episodes after that, this being an 8-episode season. So just can't wait. I think the second half of this episode is going to come out with a blaze of fire, blood, glory, and all-out warfare from both sides. And it's just going to be a sensational show to watch. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this episode. This has been Stark Cinema. I'll see you on the next video. I love you 3000. Have a great day.